Good afternoon / evening, boys and girls, ladies and gentlemen. Let me help you out here with some factoring by grouping. If you watch the first minute or so of this video, it should get you through most of the problems on this homework. Problems 13 through 16, especially periods 7 and 8, I'm not expecting a whole lot just because we didn't get that far in our notes. So if you can't get those ones, that's okay. Stay tuned though, and I'll try to help you with everything under the sun on this homework with the exception of the first 4 problems, which should be review. Hey, what's the first step of factoring? Hopefully by now you've got it stuck in your head. It's to factor out the GCF. Factoring by grouping is just really an advanced version of factoring out a greatest common factor. The basic idea here, when I look at this binomial, is I want to say what divides evenly into both 4 and 16 that I could kind of undistribute, that I could pull out, giving me 2 things that would multiply to 16x plus 4. The correct answer there, of course, is 4. And if you divide each of these terms by 4, you get 4x. 4 divided by 4 is 1. And if you don't understand this, if you're struggling with just how to factor basic binomials, then yes, factoring by grouping might be a little weird and uncomfortable simply because it's the next step, okay? When I pull a 4 out of 16x, I get 4x. When I pull the 4 out of 4, I get 1. Same sort of idea here, except rather than pulling out just a single thing, like a 4, I'm actually pulling out an entire expression. So in this case, both terms, it's still a binomial because there's just a single plus between these 2 quantities. Notice they both share an x plus 3. So rather than just pulling out a 4 out of each of these 2 things, I'm going to pull out an x plus 3, out of both of these things. When I say pull out, of course, I mean to factor or divide out. And the basic idea is if I pull out the x plus 3, what's left over? What am I multiplying the x plus 3 by in the first place? And the answer is, well, I'm multiplying it by 3x up here, right? If I distributed it, I'd be doing x plus 3 times 3x. Then over here, it's the same thing. I'm multiplying x plus 3 times 2. If you put the sign in between, this is factoring by grouping. You just take the group that they have in common, write it in front. What is left over? 3x plus 2, write it in its own group, and that's it. If you can get that step, that will get you through the majority of this homework. Problems 5 through 12 are all like that, with the exception of problem number 11. Problem number 11 is this case where we have negatives, okay? When I say negatives, I don't mean just like 4 minus y and 4 minus y. In this case, I actually have opposites. I have y minus 4, 4 minus y. And these are not the same thing, so I actually can't factor this group out unless I fix one of them. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm actually going to cover up this group. Let's forget about it for a moment. And let's just focus on this, okay? My goal is to get 4 minus y to be y minus 4. Okay, keep that in mind. Here's the way I'm actually going to approach this. I'm going to actually multiply this entire thing. When I say this entire thing, I mean 4 minus y by negative 1. Okay, I'm going to distribute a negative 1 on the inside. If I do that, I get negative 4, and then negative 1 times negative y is actually positive y. I get negative 4 plus y. And that might not seem very exciting, but if I reveal our other group for a second, you should hopefully know at this point that I can go ahead and reverse these and get the exact same thing that I had up here. So let's retrace really quick. All I've done, I've multiplied a negative 1 by everything inside the parentheses, giving me y minus 4. Now, I'm not allowed to do that unless, of course, I multiply by another negative 1. Multiplying by negative 1 twice, I actually cancel it out. And it's just multiplying by 1, which is totally cool. So what I need to do with this negative 1 is actually multiply it by the term on the outside, the quantity on the outside, excuse me. So I'm going to do negative 1 times the inside, negative 1 times the outside, which, by the way, negative 1 times negative 2 is positive 2y. And if you can kind of slug your way through that, you should hopefully be able to try number 11, because after I'm through at that point, I'm actually kind of free. I'm set because this problem is basically done. I've got two groups of y minus 4. Factor it out. And then write 3 plus 2y. That is it. We're done. Again, reverse this. Change 4 minus y to y minus 4. Change the sign on the outside as well from minus to plus, or if it was plus, change it to minus. Just reverse both sets of signs, kind of creating a double negative. And when you do that, you should get two groups that are the same that you can then factor out. All right, the last case is problems 13 through 16, which are a little bit different. Again, I'm not looking for much on these, but I'll give you a hint. If you group these and then factor each of these groups, that's actually the next step in using factoring by grouping. This wasn't our focus today. Our focus was purely on doing problems like these, okay? So if you can do these problems, I'm pretty satisfied. But again, just to give you a hint, if I factored out an x out of this first one, I factored out a y out of this second one, just because these are my GCFs, I get something that looks awfully factorable using factoring by grouping, okay? This isn't any problem that's on your homework, but it's very, very similar to all four of them. Just try them, see what you get, and we will talk about it in class tomorrow. Have yourself a wonderful night. Thanks.